Hi.
Glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
We're in a very strange room right now.
We are in a strange room.
And for those of you who are listening, we're in a studio. There's some other people that we're working with this week who are recording something upstairs. And you and I are in this old tracking room, and it smells like what?
Smells like music.
It smells like
dreams.
Music. And dreams.
And dreams.
That's right, yeah. And I was also going to say mold.
And moldy dreams.
Moldy dreams. That's right. Oh, man. Well, hey, I'm glad you're here on the podcast with me today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. It's an honor.
Well, there's some things I want to talk about that are very maybe specific that we'll get to. But first, we just have to do origin stuff.
Sweet.
You know, origin story. Where'd you come from? Who are you? I would so love it if you would maybe just fill us in. Like, where were you born? And who are your parents? And what kind of family did you grow up in? And did you love God from the time you were just a little tiny baby? Like, all that kind of stuff.
Perfect. So just like a really simple question to kick us off.
That's right.
I was born in Yakima, Washington, because my parents were planting the Yakima Vineyard at the time, or on the team that was helping church plant. So I grew up in Washington State, largely in Puyallup until I was 12. Dad was, he was a worship leader. Mom was a worship leader at this church in Vineyard Church in Puyallup.
Say that again. Puyallup?
Puyallup, Washington.
Puyallup.
It's where the state fair is now.
Puyallup. That's just fun to say, isn't it?
It is. Puyallup.
Spell that for me.
Puyallup. Puyallup. Almost like Puyallup.
Wow. Okay. I don't have an exhaustive list of geography in my mind, but I feel like I'm B- geography for the U.S.
Okay,
I've
fair.
never heard of that.
Wait till I tell you about Olathe, Kansas.
I have heard of it.
You have?
Okay,
I've
heard of
great.
Olathe, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, well, that's cool. So, Puyallup.
Puyallup.
Gosh, I can't even say Puyallup. That's so
yes,
good.
so I have, I suppose, just some more family context. I have two brothers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the oldest. Parents have been in the vineyard for a very, very, very long time. And
so you're like a real vineyard kid.
I am a vineyard kid. The story goes is that when I was born, they would they took my little bassinet and they would put it on the stage when they were prepping for worship things. Yeah. So childhood was kind of split between Washington State, Puyallup, and then my dad was a worship arts pastor at a vineyard in Kansas City area, Overland Park. So we trekked over there when I was 12, much to my middle school chagrin and anger.
So you left the Pacific Northwest and you went to
Kansas. So I was in Kansas from 12 to 22, about-ish. But to backtrack, I think I had always grown up believing in God. And I don't remember a time in my childhood when I was like, I'm not sure about this.
That's right.
Here are some really important origin stories is I always tie these two together. I have this memory of being in Puyallup and my dad and my mom are leading worship. And I'm counting the number of songs on my fingers because I had figured out how many there were. And I was just bored out of my mind. I'm like, okay, like we're on song number 3, so we're almost done.
Yeah.
And then flash forward to I'm in this wonderful youth group at a vineyard in Overland Park. And I have this very distinct moment of worship is playing. And we're in a worship together. And I feel like I'm like, wait, I'm supposed to like, I need to like raise my hands. I think something is happening inside of me and I'd never experienced that before. And so then a leader came over to me, a youth leader came over and she laid her hands on me and started praying for me. And I don't know how else to say it other than it felt like a brick wall fell to the ground. And I think that's a word that she actually gave me, like something broke and there was, I felt God's presence rush over me. And not only that, I felt this freedom and desire and hunger bubble up inside of me. And this is the story I often tell the students in youth group. Hey, like, this is what changed my life. This is where I encountered the living God and specifically in the context of worship. And the thing is I can't recall quite the timing, but I think I had joined the youth worship team at that point because if I'm honest, in my 12-year-old heart, I'm like, I can sing. Yeah. I should be up there. Like I'll wear my high heels and I'll sing. But that moment changed both my faith and kind of started my journey with worship.
And so, you were 12?
12, 13, right around there, and fresh, kind of struggling a little bit, having just moved across the country. It's a tough time. That's right. For everyone. And so then
middle school's hard.
Middle school's rough, but man, middle schoolers are the best. Okay. Oh my gosh, they're fun, they're creative, they're interested in what you have to say. So that I'd say that's kind of my faith origin story. And then do you want me to kind of go all the way up through now? Like
we could. Well, why don't we slow down here for a second?
Yeah.
It's interesting to me. You tell these two stories back to back. So on the one hand, you're like a little girl and you're counting the songs. This is so boring.
Yeah.
But then at 12, you have some kind of an encounter with the Spirit and you feel like things are unlocked for you.
Yes. And it was no longer just, I don't know, I'm making music because music is cool. And my whole family is very, very musical, and they're all gifted differently in their own right. But it's like, no, we're making music unto God. And that changed everything.
So something unlocked in your heart and in your mind in that moment.
Yes. And through the formation of the leaders and pastors in that youth group, concurrently with, being trained in worship, that's where I feel like my faith really, truly became my own.
Yeah. Okay. Say more about leading worship.
Oh, great. Well, I started off as BGV from kind of 12 to 15. I think I'd lead a song here or there. We had a guy who was overseeing youth worship. And I started, I'd say, like really leading around 17 when I picked up guitar and actually stuck with guitar, because I had tried to start guitar when I was young, and I just did not have the discipline to do it. So I picked up guitar for not just for leading worship. It kind of felt like, I can't recall if someone encouraged me to, or if it just kind of naturally happened. And also songwriting was starting to bubble up in me, as I had always
Were those things happening at the same time?
Yes, they were. And so I have very distinct memories of having my little Epiphone hummingbird in hand. And I was actually inspired by Brooke Fraser, now Lighterwood. She had an album called Flags. And I listened to it and I'm like, wow, the way that she writes. And this is, a worship leader I admire, but then she releases an album that's not worship music. And so, of course, I'm like, oh, I got to listen to this. Yeah. And so, it kind of at the same time as I'm learning guitar, I'm like, I want to craft words and phrases about beauty in the world the way that she does. And so both of those things started happening at the same time. Started leading worship in youth group. Led worship at various things in college, in my college ministry, with or without a guitar. Started leading worship at a Vineyard church in my local college town, and it's kind of how I got started in like really leading with an instrument, which I definitely do not think you have to have an instrument to lead worship.
No, it's handy though.
It's handy, and I chose guitar because it was portable. Yeah. That's actually was my motivation. Like, I can take this everywhere, and it felt like there was a shift for me personally, picking up a guitar and leading with a guitar specifically. I actually feel kind of weird not leading with a guitar sometimes. I'm like,
it's a weird thing.
Yeah, I feel a little strange
At the beginning, it feels weird to hold it.
Yeah.
And then it feels weird to make your hand make the shapes. Mm-hmm. But then after you have it for a while, especially if it's with you on the stage, the first times you're on stage, it's so formative that it really does feel strange if you're up in front of people without the guitar. It feels it feels like I don't have a shirt on or something.
I know. That's no, for real. That's the best way to put it. But on the other flip side though, I love the few times that I don't lead with an instrument. Being able to raise both hands is so nice.
Yeah.
I love that, because I can't even really raise one most of the time because I'm strumming or,
Okay, well let's maybe back up one little bit again.
Sure.
So you're leading worship, you're playing guitar, you've caught onto this Brooke Fraser record, you've started to write songs. Is there anybody in this moment of your life who is encouraging you? I'm thinking about middle school you, and then that leader coming over and like putting their hand on you and praying for you. Was there anybody who either ministered to you or just in that way that mentors do, spoke to you and unlocked something for you at that moment? Or was it because this also happens. Sometimes our mentorship or our encouragement is actually happening at a distance, and maybe it's like in that Brooke Fraser record.
Yeah.
You know?
That's my challenge is less like I can't name the people and more there's so many. There's so many. If we're thinking up to about that time of 22, my parents have always been big encouragers to me. And
your parents are encouragers of everyone.
That's true. That's true.
Shout out to the Hix. I mean,
love you, Mom and Dad.
That's right. I mean, are you kidding me?
Yeah. So I so much, that's the thing is like so much of what I learned about worship, both the practical and the heart aspects, it was just around the family dinner table.
Really?
Or just sitting and, I was a church kid, so I'd be there really early, and sometimes just sitting in the practices, I learned things just watching and absorbing. And, when I finally put down my teenage pride and started asking my parents questions like, wow, what do you think about this? That helped a lot.
It does help a lot.
That helped a lot. But there are just so many people along the way that poured so much love and life and encouragement into me, whether it was just pastorally, like Mark Roberts in Manhattan, Kansas, just he cared for me, saw me, loved me, pastored me, and not even specifically in worship, but formationally in my heart Spencer Hansen was the worship, was our youth worship leader. And I learned so much from him about watching him play guitar and learning. It's countless. I don't even know where to start. 'Cause it's like, okay, well, just tell me what age. And I have always had someone, a mentor, a teacher, a leader, and whether for just my heart or specifically worship, that has kind of brought me into who I am today. Yeah, I don't know how to answer it. It's a big question.
It's great. That's a really wonderful thing. That's not everyone's story, but it is some people's story. Some people are just kind of surrounded. And,
that's a good way to put it.
And you had your parents, and of course your parents have worked on staff at churches, and so that kind of does position you differently.
Yes.
Not just with them, but you're just around other pastors and leaders, and not just some, but a lot. And it would make sense that you would feel like you have a lot of people around you who have seen you and encouraged you.
So many. And even that's the thing is those names are just up until 22. I mean, even in the past 6 years, it's countless. So many people along the West Coast in California, in Oregon and Washington that have really formed me and helped me work through even the really difficult times that inevitably come when you're leading worship. Yeah.
They do.
They really do.
Okay, so there's something I want us to talk about specifically today, but we'll wait one more second before we get there. I know you're also like a songwriter, and you write all kinds of songs.
I do.
What do you want to say about that?
Well, just that songwriting is my favorite craft in the whole world, and I confess that I'm trying to get to work on the skill of writing congregationally. Like worship music is just harder for me to write, man. I don't know. Like a lot of my songwriting is, I guess, secular music.
Yeah.
But most of my songwriting has happened like in my room with a guitar, and I feel something really strongly, or I see something that inspires me, and I'm like, I should write a song about that. And so I songwrite. I'm a local singer-songwriter, and so I play small shows around town with music. That's the way that I songwrite is I write about feelings, trees, melancholy waves.
Yeah.
It's
very Pacific Northwest. I hate to bring that up, but it's just this feels like it could be a young lady who lives in Washington.
That is precisely how I think about it too. And I'm an Enneagram 4, so is anyone surprised by that? No,
you can't be too happy. There's got to be a little bit of melancholy in there somewhere.
Yes. So, and lately I have been trying to challenge myself more to like lean into joy, not just in my songwriting, but in just life in general. It's something I think I'm still working on. But I mean, what to say about songwriting? It's so fun.
Yeah.
It's such a joy. I think it's absolutely reflective of the creative God that we serve. But for me, it is truly most of the time, it's like a journal for me. And then when I play for people, it's like I open up my journal and say, this is
Here's
how I
some
feel.
things.
Here are some things.
Yeah.
And
Do
the
you remember the
greatest
first
joy.
song you wrote?
Yes, I do.
Okay. What do you want to say about that?
I'd say I consider the first song I wrote on guitar was inspired by Brooke Ladderwood's Sailboats. So I wrote a song about a gal at home whose like husband has gone away to sea, and the song, I think I literally just called it The Sailor Song, is about her lamenting the fact that her love has gone out.
And this is your first song?
This is my first song at 17, and it's not even my own story. And it genuinely was inspired by, I'm like, I love the ocean. I could write a song about the ocean.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I have okay, let's just stop there for a second. If you think about that song today, you're older now.
I am.
You were a different person then. It was your first song you ever wrote. Do you remember how to play it?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And you're thinking in the moment, I'm inspired by Brooke again. I can write a song about the ocean, and you write this fictional tale. But if you look back on it now, is there some part of you that recognizes, oh, there's a story in there that's actually my story?
I think,
I mean,
wow.
that's some deeper psychological.
It is. I have to think about that. I remember the song very well.
But I would almost. Here's what I would bet.
Go for it.
I would bet that it is your story.
What?
I don't think that there are songs. I don't think we write songs that are just benign. Even when we think it is, I think our psychological makeup is such that we're always pulling these threads from our life, and maybe we repackage it into a character or into a scene. And wow. I would just wonder if there's not a 17-year-old version of you that's like, there's a part of my life that feels like it's out at sea, that there's a part of my life that is, captured by youthful longing. What is more teenager than that?
Totally.
Right? So
wow.
I'm not saying that we have to dissect that right here, but I would imagine, Liz, that if you went back and looked at that song again, that there's a story that is very much your story. And it isn't just the practice of songwriting.
No, that's good. You know what what's coming to mind right now is that there's kind of an ongoing joke that I have with people who know me pretty well, is every time I go to the ocean, I get very pensive, and like I need to like go and like walk along the shore by myself and stare into the waves, and
You're
perhaps
an Enneagram 4. That's great.
yeah, which makes sense. And they're my last friendship.
You're dressed
like,
in all black and you have tattoos. Of course, you need to go walk along the ocean.
That's so true. But there is. If I'm like, and we don't have to go too deep into it, but like, I'm so glad that you asked that question, because I know those lyrics by heart. I'm like, it's about. I've always had this kind of melancholy longing for something, and sometimes I don't even know what the something is, and it is somehow, I think, connected to the waves and the ocean and what the ocean represents for me. It's like the ocean. Part of the reason I love going to the ocean is because in looking at the vastness, I am excited about what feels like a representation of possibility. I think there's something in longing for, even if I don't know what I'm longing for, I'm like, wow, like
why
anything
possibility?
is possible.
That's an amazing word to use there.
Well, because I'm totally gonna rip this quote to shreds, but there is something, is it John Muir that says something along the lines of like, the world is like broad and wide, and I must explore its beauty, or something akin to that. And I think that's what I see when I say the word possibility. I'm like, wow, there's so much to explore and see.
There's so much to see.
There's so much while I'm here on this limited time on Earth. And I think I'm very much like someone who gets up in the weeds of things really easily in details, and I can just get really lost in the nitty gritty. And leaning into the vastness of God's glory, of the world, of possibility, kind of helps me. What I need is constantly is to zoom out and go, oh, I don't have to sit in the weeds of like whatever sorrow. Like, why am I longing? Like, what am I longing for? It's more like, wow, like there's so much. I want to always be someone who's excited about what could be while still living in the contentment of the reality that I'm in. And I think that might just be a tension I feel my
that's great.
whole life.
I love the way you framed it.
Thanks.
Yeah. Live in the excitement of what could be, but also live in the contentment of what is here and with me now.
Yeah. Working on it.
No, that's great. Progress. I like that. I think that's great. This has been a few years ago. This has been actually many years ago. But I don't normally have dreams. I'll tell a little story here. So I don't normally have dreams, but I had a dream one night, and I had this dream. It's really strange, okay? So I had this dream that Daniel Boone came to me. He walked out of the woods. So imagine like there's some woods, and it was as though I was standing in a field. It's a very strange deal. And Daniel Boone walks out of the woods to me, and he comes right up to me and he says, the frontier is still alive. You should go back to the woods. And then he turns around and he walks. And that was the dream, right? And I woke up the next morning and I was haunted in the best way. Not afraid, not even disturbed, but just haunted. Like, wow, what in the world? It took me a few days to realize, I think that was the Holy Spirit. Right? I think this dream, I think Daniel Boone was the Holy Spirit. But what ended up happening was, after that, I started writing songs again, and none of them were congregational. And I wrote about 12 songs, and they're all frontier songs. And I didn't even know what I was writing about. Maybe one day I'll turn this into a record. I don't know. Probably not. But I wrote all these songs, and after I looked back at them in my little iPhone, voice recorder note memo thing, and on my notepad on my computer, I realized, there's this theme that I'm working out with God or in my own heart or whatever, and it's this thought of, man, there's just nothing else for us to find. And there was like this sadness in me. It was like, oh man, there's nothing else for us to find. And then I started to realize, I wonder how many people are living lives of desperation because they think there's nothing else to look for, right? Like the world's been explored. There are no frontiers. All the mountains have been climbed. And unless you're Elon Musk and can afford a space rocket, you literally can't go anywhere else. And I started to sort of do a deep dive on just sort of the existential angst that is in people of my generation, but then also underneath me. And it actually changed, not only was it like a songwriting project, but it sort of like changed my preaching ever since then. Wow. And one of the things I'm always speaking to is there is a frontier. There is a new horizon. There are other places for us to explore and to go to. And the narrative of it's all over is not true. And I guess I'm telling you that story because there are no benign songs. I just wanted to come back to that. There are no benign songs. Right. We're always working it out as songwriters.
Yes.
Songwriters are the canaries in the coal mine. That's what I think. I think, they used to put little canaries on the coal miners, and they would go down into the coal mines, and as long as the canary was alive, the coal miner was okay, right?
Oh, I did not know this.
Oh yeah,
oh my gosh!
No. It was about like the quality of the air and the oxygen, the breathability, or the gases that you could accidentally mine yourself into and die, right? And as a culture, I think this is part of the gift of songwriting. We're the early warning sign of both good possibility or the dangers that are around the corner. We're telling not just, we're not just telling stories. We're containing all of life. Not to make it too grand, but yeah.
No, I agree, because that I don't remember. I can't remember how I quite phrased it at a show that I played recently, but another part of the reason I love songwriting is because songwriting is the human experience. It's humanity sung as opposed to written down or passed down, just in spoken word. And I appreciate what you said too about, there are no benign songs, because I've been amazed at, selfishly, I often, when I'm songwriting for myself, because I treat my songs often as journal entries. But one of the reasons that I think it's so important that we share songs, whether they're, worship congregationally, local, national, global, whatever you want to call it, is I've been amazed when I have shared songs, whether, I don't know, sitting in a living room or at a show, is I've had people message me or tell me, like, tears in their eyes, like, that song resonated so deeply in me. And when that first started happening, I went, this is why we need to share what we write. Like, even the most ridiculous little songs that I've written that are sometimes just super silly, or maybe they were really meaningful to me, when I see how other people go, me too, or wow, I've been through that, or I get it, that's what really draws me to the craft of songwriting, is because it should be shared between people. And that's I feel like songwriting is the way, especially as someone who sometimes kind of struggles to get out what I need to say, or I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but putting it in a song, it helps so much, and it's beautiful.
That's right.
Beautiful. I love the canary in the coal mine. I'd never heard that story before, and I will carry that with me. Yeah. That's really neat.
Well, one of the things you just said I love is you think it's for you, but then you share it, and it begins to touch another person.
Yep.
And one of the long-standing traditions inside of songwriting is the idea that if you want to write something universal, you first have to write it particular.
That's good.
That in the particular is the universal. And now some people, there's a lot of different kind of songwriters. And there are some people who just in their soul, they're writing for the world. It's almost as though they can imagine writing for the world, and that's fine. And, imagine even like a Taylor Swift or something there. But what's interesting about even Taylor is she's telling very personal stories. I think her best songs are like the ones where she's telling a very particular story that's about her, but we never hear it that way, do we? We hear it as my story.
Dang, that's true.
And so
that's very true.
Liz, I think there's something I would just want to encourage you to say, keep writing the particular story that is your journal, whatever that is. The good moments and the bad moments. And then I loved what you were saying about sharing it, because that's what songs are for.
Yes. I thought that, and I selfishly was like, no, this is mine. And then I think I don't know if every songwriter hits this point, but I certainly did, where I started having to stop holding them so tightly, whether it was tightly.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I think when I was younger, I was, if someone offered a very fair or thoughtful, constructive criticism of a song that I brought to them and said, I wrote this, what do you think? I would take it as a value judgment if they're like, oh, like, I think that maybe you could adjust this or this, or hey, like, this actually isn't very clear. And I'm like, how dare you? Like, that's my heart. Like, this is my, you don't like this song. Well, you don't like me then. It's, ridiculous. Yeah. But not just in terms of the craft of like collaboration, which we could probably talk about for a long time, about the art of songwriting collaboration, which is something I'm still personally growing in. But when I stopped making songwriting about, I'm going to go into my bedroom and shut my door and process and write out the way that I need to, which that's how I songwrite. And I feel like I started cracking open the door to, oh, maybe I can share some of these with some people. Oh, maybe I could write with others. Or maybe, just maybe, that part of the reason that I feel like the Lord has planted this deep desire to songwrite in me, it just happens. It just started happening, is for others.
Yeah.
It's like that. This is a gift that can be shared and is a gift unto others. And I didn't know that sharing songs was a gift to others until I started sharing them and people were like, thank you. And I went, thank you? Huh. I might need to reframe how I think about this fun thing that I do.
Yeah. Well, when you hear a song that resonates with you, it does emote gratitude. When I hear somebody who writes a song and it just gets me, I think like 5 things at once. Like, I think, number one, I wish I'd written that, And then I also think,
yeah, I've been there.
I'm just glad that this song exists in the world. And then maybe I'm not exactly thinking it with my rational brain, but I'm certainly feeling it. And if I dig down into it a little bit, that the rational part is there, which is, there's somebody else in the world like me. Because this song, they've just said this thing, and man, it's not my story, but it kind of is my story. There's somebody else here who's like me, and that just feels amazing. And it's strange how your experience could shine light on my experience. And even though I'm a listener, maybe not close to you at all, either by relationship or proximity, you just feel very seen in the world.
Part of me, I was laughing to myself because one of something that was rising in me, I'm like, well, I'm an Enneagram 4. Like, no one is like me. Like, what are you talking about? I'm too unique to be understood by all these others, descriptive, not prescriptive, but perhaps that was part of the block that I had, is that the beauty there is someone who is like me and understands whatever song I'm bringing forth. It's a beautiful thing. Connection is a beautiful thing. And I don't know, call it pride, call it for weirdness, but I have been learning or trying to learn how to walk more in the humility of the joy and the gratitude of connection through that form.
Amen. Okay, so tell me about not just songwriting, but the image that's in your mind for what you'd like it to be one time at some point.
Songwriting?
Yeah.
What I'd like it to be for myself?
Yeah. Do you want to, is this a career? Do you see yourself putting out records? Is that something you want to do?
Oh, well, my dream, my little secret cave dream that I've had is I would love to write.
Put it out here on the Ferment. Put it out here on the Ferment list. Give it to us. Let us hear it.
Is I would love to write songs in my basement.
Yes.
I don't even have a basement. In the basement of the house I'll have one day, and send them away, because I love playing locally. Like, I love sharing my music locally. I don't have a desire to be a touring artist. I know it's a grind, and I think some people are built for it, and I'm just not. I think that the greatest, one of the gifts that I uniquely bring as Liz, as bringing music into the world, it is the craft of songwriting. I feel like that's what I'm strongest at, and it's what brings me the most joy. So I would love to put out like one EP or one LP, and like a really thoughtful one that would be, truly, ideally recorded in a studio like this.
Yes.
Like this is totally my vibe. I also really love the 70s. So this feels like, this place feels like home to me, is put out 1 or 2 really thoughtful, meaningful songs that I love and just want to share with people. And then after that, I will pen songs that I love and collect the royalties, and they can be shared with everyone else, and I can be kind of hidden away, but still getting to do what I love.
That's great. I think you should do it. I think the other thing I hear in that dream is, I think you need to learn how to engineer your own records. Like, you can do it.
I think so. I'm surrounded by great people who could really teach me.
Yeah, you probably need some help from somebody at the beginning, but I bet you could at least learn how to make your own little demos at home, not just write it, but actually begin to give it some shape.
I'd like to, and I've over the years, I've had many people ask me, like, where can I listen to your music? And I'm like, I don't know. Nowhere. Yeah. Come to my house and sit in the kitchen and I'll play some music for you. But it is time. It's more of when and how and the space. And I've not played my music with a full band ever before. So I just feel like I just have a lot to learn.
Okay. So I'm for some reason, a band is coming up to my brain while we're having this conversation. Do you know the band Deep Sea Diver?
I do not.
Okay.
I like the name. It's about the ocean.
Yeah, well, maybe that's why it's coming up. But you need to check out Deep Sea Diver.
Okay, will do.
Because the front person for the band is this fierce lady. Fierce lady. Such a great singer, such a great guitar player. Like a legit guitar player.
That's so cool.
So cool.
We need more of that.
We
in the
do
music
need
world
more of that.
Really badly.
Yeah. Something about our conversation is just sort of like bringing that into my mind. Well, let's do this. Talk to me about, who do you love?
Ooh, music-wise?
Yeah, who do you love?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. Okay.
It doesn't even have to be the most. It can just be like things you like right now.
I'll just start spitballing and see what comes out.
Yes.
I love the way that Ben Rector writes songs. There is an honesty and an authenticity that I really admire. Lizzie McAlpine is a big influence for me right now. And you're just going to start to see a trend in the kind of music that, let's see, who else am I? Gabe Dixon band. Well, I guess it's just Gabe Dixon now. I've been a huge fan of his music for a long time. I really like, if you're familiar with Walk the Moon, I really love like synth kind of 80s inspired, like I can dance to a beat. It's fun, it's explosive, it's joyful. I really love that kind of music in general. And who else? I'm trying to think if there's anyone. Who are my core people?
What did Spotify say was your number one last year? This is very intimate.
I think I was like, I think it was the band Camino. Because, because it was very reflective of my summer playlist and my summer running playlist.
Yeah.
So, and that is a band that has, that kind of fun pop, sounds kind of 80s, Walk the Moon kind of vibe. So yes, I think it was the band.
So there's a few themes in there already.
Yes, and I know Lizzie McAlpine was on that list. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anyone new currently that I've added to my repertoire. Half Alive.
I don't know Half Alive.
Same. This is going to sound crazy, but it has this like almost 80s inspired feeling to it. But the songwriting is so rich, and I'm really drawn to what I don't think it needs to be a tension, but this kind of tension between these very big concepts and ideas in this like, but I can dance around to this, and I love that.
There's something about it that's fun.
Yes, fun. And I think, and I love, how could I forget this? Noah Gunderson has been a huge influence in my writing for a long
What do you think
time.
you picked up from Noah?
Same thing that I think I picked up from like Ben Rector's honesty is, as much as I love like a good metaphor or analogy or, playing with words, I'm very into figurative language. There is something, what they're saying when they write. And Noah's music specifically, in his whole repertoire, his sound changes definitely through his albums. There's something about the way that he poses questions that he's wrestling through that really resonated in me of like, I could write. This song is reflective of things that I'm thinking about or questioning, and it's done beautifully. It also, in some of his earlier stuff, I love that there's a lot of violin, and I love that there's a lot of 3-part harmonies, and I love the way he plays guitar, but there is, and also a lot of his music is very melancholy, and I really, really like that.
That's right.
I really like that.
We just like sad songs.
I just like, I'll tell a little, I don't know where this will fit, but here's a little snippet of a story that I think really reflects who I am, not as a songwriter, but also as a person, is I had friends in youth group who told me from their perspective, they would see me sitting in a corner, and I had to have a long dark piece of hair in one of my eyes, and I looked very mysterious.
Very emo.
Very emo, very mysterious and cool. And then they'd just go, "Hi, Liz," and I'd go, "Hi there."
Yeah.
And that's kind of I think that's kind of the walking juxtaposition of who I am, is like my middle name is Joy. Mm-hmm. And I like sometimes sit in like this melancholy, but then I love to dance to like 80s, rock music.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's kind of my music too.
Well, that's awesome. I can't help but think, you live in Vancouver.
I do.
Portland is just right over there. And there's Seattle not too far away. Mm-hmm. You're in this amazing little triangle for music.
Yes.
What are you going to do about that?
Well, here's another little secret cave dream that I have is Portland has a rich music scene. Seattle has a rich music scene, but in what I now feel like is like my hometown, and by hometown I mean my home, where I'm planting roots, where I love living there. I love the people I'm surrounded by. I want to start some kind of music collective in Vancouver, Washington, because it's not the place where people go to like listen to music. They're going to go to Portland or they're going to go to Seattle. Like, we don't have bands that tour specifically through Vancouver. I just want to create spaces for people to create together. That's the dream. And I mean, I think I'd like to record probably some songs there. But I've met so many wonderful people who are local to Vancouver, and I'm like, man, like, we need a space here too. If anything, I feel like we're kind of between two very strong magnets, and I feel like we need some spaces.
It can happen.
I think so. I think it can. I hope to be a part of it in some way.
It can totally happen. Okay, so we're not going to talk about any of the stuff that I thought we were going to talk about.
Oh, okay, cool.
We're just not. We haven't, and we're not going to.
Okay,
this is just we've taken a left turn.
Sounds great.
We're somewhere else. You know, there's probably a lot of people who are listening, and I'm just thinking about a lot of the women and maybe a lot of the girls who are listening to the podcast, because there's so many amazing worship leaders in the Vineyard who are women, and maybe they're listening to you talk and they're thinking, wow, Liz sounds so confident when she's talking about songwriting. I want to write songs, but I feel really locked. What would you want to say to those people?
Ooh. Man, this is going to sound so cliche.
It's okay.
I never thought I'd say it, but I'm going to say it.
Cliches are okay.
Cliches are okay. I'll say the cliche and then I'll expand on it. If you're feeling locked, write anyway. Mm-hmm. If you're feeling discouraged because you write a song and you're like, this is literally crap, write again. So much of songwriting for me is sometimes, more so specifically when I'm locked, sometimes it is quantity. Like my heart's desire is to write a quality song every single time, and that's just not true. Mm-hmm. It's just not true. I have my repertoire now of kind of like the 20-ish songs that I most often play at different places, but I've written probably, I don't know, 70 plus songs, and so keep writing anyway. I think it's really important for songwriters to spend time with other songwriters. I'm learning that more and more. I think it's really important for songwriters, if you're feeling locked. We talked about that earlier this week with some others. Go to a concert. Mm-hmm. That is a huge thing that I've learned, is if you're a songwriter and a musician, spend time, invest. I think it's often seen as, it's entertainment, which it is. Like, a concert is entertaining.
But it's more than that. It feeds the soul.
It feeds the soul. And every single time I go to a concert, whether it's at a very small venue in Portland or, a really big one, that can re-stir inspiration in me when I'm feeling kind of locked up inside for songwriting. What's another? I'm trying to think of the golden nuggets that I've received over the years about songwriting that have helped me a lot. Classic, right? Write what you know. Mm-hmm. My weakest songs have often been the times that I have tried to write about things that I was wholly unfamiliar with, whether for the sake of an exercise. Sometimes the song really truly does writes itself. So I'd say, if you're feeling blocked or unsure where to start, just start riffing in your room. Whether you're just singing or with a guitar or with the banjo, with a mandolin, with a piano, it doesn't matter, is just start singing. I think it was actually Taylor Swift that said something along the lines of, she has like a songwriting language. Like, it's almost like this weird combination of like singing, speaking while she's just kind of playing chords or saying phrases and seeing what pops out, because that's where a lot of my richest songs have come out of.
A lot of songwriters do that.
Sing-song language.
It's almost just gibberish.
Yes, but as a young songwriter, I felt weird doing it.
Yeah, you get used to just the sounds that you're making over those melodies.
Exactly.
And the kind of vowels that maybe sound good in that particular phrasing, and then all of a sudden a word will come.
Yes.
You keep that word, another word comes, maybe you keep it or you throw it away, add another, and then it's more intuitive. It's from the guts.
And on that note too, is if you're going to write a song from the guts, you have to look inside your guts and see what's what's going on. And I think being self-reflective, spending time alone, is one great way I've found that, one, I get a sense of what's going on inside of me, and two, that is oftentimes fodder for a song, because I can't write what I know, and I can't write what's in my guts if I'm not spending time thinking about what's in my gut right now, whether it's a piece of pizza or sorrow.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's going to bubble up.
Yes, and also, don't be discouraged if you write a song that sucks. Because I've written songs that I thought were so great, and then I listen back, I'm like, this is terrible. And when I was young, I'd get discouraged, and I'd be like, I'm a bad songwriter. Like, I can't ever write a song again. But just keep doing it. And also, one thing that I think helps as well is you got to reframe. I had to reframe songwriting as, this is a skill. And I deeply believe that any skill can be learned. The same way that, we are all created differently, like we have natural giftings and inclination, but you can learn to songwrite as a skill. And oftentimes that skill is developed by being around people who know more than you, fellow songwriters who are on the same level as you, and learning and reading and researching about songwriting. Like if you have that fire burning in you that I want to be a songwriter and I don't know how to get started, start looking up podcasts from other songwriters. Start doing research.
Yeah, there's so much out there. And I just love what you were saying a moment ago about just go to a show. It does something about making your heart come alive every single time.
Totally.
Very cool, Liz. Very cool. Can't wait till we get to hear your record one day.
Whew, I hope so. I hope in the next couple of years. I'd love to share my sad tunes about the ocean and the trees.
I wish you would. I totally wish you would. And thanks for just coming on and talking with me about songwriting. We don't often talk about songwriting on this podcast. In fact, I had another plan, but we just sort of like slid into this lane.
Sweet. And
it feels great to me. And I think it's good and right because there's a lot of people who are on our little listenership who live this kind of life. So it's good to give them some encouragement here and there.
Glad to be here.
All right. Hey, we'll have you come back again sometime and we'll talk about all those other things that were written down on my computer.
Sounds great.
All right.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Peace.
Bye.
Hey everyone, Casey Corum here, producer of the podcast. Thanks for listening. As always, if you've been enjoying the podcast, here's a few ways you can help us. First of all, leave us a review on the podcast platform of your choice. This helps more people find us. Also, connect with us on social media. Instagram at the Ferment Podcast and Twitter at FermentCast. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. See you next week. Peace.